here on the CU Compliance Connection by League Info site, bringing you a summary of some of the changes becoming effective on January 1st, 2018 for the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act, or HMDA. Let's take a quick look at some of the key changes of the new HMDA rules becoming effective in January. First, the definition of a financial institution changed, so we will discuss briefly how that may impact credit unions and coverage. We'll also talk about the changes in the types of loans that are required to be reported under the rules, which is now based on a dwelling secured standard. There are a significant amount of new data points and revised data points that the credit union now needs to collect. Changes were also made on the requirements to collect and report ethnicity, race, and sex of the applicant, which also prompted additional changes to Regulation B, which implements the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, or ECOA. There were changes to how credit unions report their HMDA data as well, which is now electronic. And then to sum it all up, credit unions will have new lobby disclosures and will direct credit unions requesting HMDA data to the CFPB's website. So let's dive in to each of these a little bit deeper. Credit unions only need to comply with the HMDA reporting requirements if they are considered a financial institution under the amended rules. As you can see, there is still the asset size threshold, which is currently $44 million, but that will probably change for 2018, so be on the lookout for that revision. We also have the location requirement to determine if the credit union had a home or branch office located in a metropolitan statistical area, or MSA. The loan activity requirement is that during the preceding calendar year, the credit union must have originated at least one home purchase loan or refinancing secured by a first lien on a 1 to 4 unit dwelling. There is still the requirement to be federally insured or regulated. And then lastly, the loan volume thresholds for closed-end mortgage loans and open-end lines of credit. So if the credit union meets or exceeds either loan volume threshold in each of the 2 preceding calendar years, they are required to report those particular loans. As of January 1st, 2018, the loan volume threshold for closed-end mortgages is 25, and for open-end lines of credit, 500. The 500 limit is only temporary, so effective in 2020, the loan volume threshold will decrease to 100. Remember, these are separate tests. If your credit union does not meet the open-end line of credit threshold, you are not required to report those loans. Only the closed-end loans provided your credit union meets that threshold. Likewise, if your credit union only meets the open-end line of credit threshold, you are not required to report the closed-end loans. The transactional coverage under the new rules has changed pretty significantly. The rule has moved towards a dwelling secured model, which makes things a little easier, at least in my opinion. There are definitions in the new rule of what is considered a closed-end mortgage loan and open-end line of credit, but both include the requirement to be secured by a lien on a dwelling. Keep in mind that a business purpose transaction that is exempt from Regulation Z but is otherwise an open-end line of credit under the regulation would be considered an open-end line of credit under the HMDA rule if it is secured by a lien on a dwelling. A dwelling is a residential structure, and there is no requirement for that structure to be attached to real property or that it be the applicant or borrower's residence. So that may include secondary homes and vacation homes, investment properties, detached residential structures, or cooperative units. Credit unions are encouraged to review the regulation for more detailed information on covered transactions and those transactions that are specifically excluded under the rules in order to build compliant procedures and have compliant reporting. After the credit union has determined if the transaction is a covered loan under the HMDA rules, it generally needs to report information for actions taken on those applications. The definition of an application is similar to Regulation B, except that pre-qualification requests are not applications under the HMDA rule. Also, under the HMDA rule, a request for a pre-approval may be treated differently than a request for a pre-qualification for certain types of loans. So credit unions need to make sure their procedures properly address this. Under the HMDA rules, a pre-approval request is an application if the request is for a home purchase loan, not secured by a multiple family dwelling, not for an open-end line of credit or reverse mortgage, and reviewed under a pre-approval program as defined within the rules. So keep in mind, your credit union's pre-approval program will need to be compared to the requirements within the regulation before determining if it is a pre-approval program that satisfies the definition under the rules and therefore requires reporting. Remember, a credit union reports data regarding a request under a pre-approval program only if the pre-approval request is denied or approved, if not accepted. It's also going to report if the pre-approval resulted in the origination of a home purchase loan, but that will be reported as an origination covered loan. All right, now on to the reportable data points. There were a significant amount of changes here. Remember, the credit union will need to be prepared to collect data from all the new and modified data points on which final action is taken on or after January 1st, 2018. So credit unions are going to need to make sure that starting in January, they are capturing that data for reporting in March of 2019. The new data points are listed on this slide for reference. Also, please keep in mind that applications that credit unions receive in 2017 but decision or take action on in 2018 will need to be reported using the revised rules and data points. Another change that is important to highlight for credit unions is the use of a legal entity identifier, or LEI. This is an identifier issued to the credit union by a utility endorsed by the Global LEI Foundation or LEI Regulatory Oversight Committee. We've included a link on the slide that credit unions can utilize to determine if they have an LEI already. If the credit union does not, they will need to obtain one. Why? Because for compliant HMDA reporting, the credit union must report a universal loan identifier for each covered loan or application. And that universal loan identifier must begin with the credit union's LEI. Under the new rules, we must also be prepared for members coming in to the branch to ask for our modified LAR or loan application register data and or our HMDA disclosure. For the HMDA disclosure, the FFIEC is going to provide notice to the credit union that the disclosure statement is available. No later than 3 business days after receiving notice from the FFIEC, the credit union must make available to the public, upon request, written notice that indicates the disclosure statement can be obtained on the CFPB's website with the proper web address. This notice can be provided electronically or in paper form. The credit union can also provide the disclosure statement and impose a reasonable fee for the costs incurred for providing that statement. Also, upon request from a member of the public, the credit union has to provide written notice regarding the availability of its modified LAR. The credit union can use the model language to meet the requirements of both disclosures. Also, similar with the HMDA disclosure statement, the credit union can also reproduce their modified LAR and impose fees for the costs incurred to actually reproduce that and provide the information to the member. Another change that credit unions are going to want to make sure they comply with is the revised lobby notice. So again, the model language is provided within the regulation and is available on this slide. So credit unions are encouraged to use this model language. Just make sure you have it up in your lobby on January 1st, 2018. Yes, they do look pretty similar to the other disclosures, but there are some minor differences between the two, so just make sure you're utilizing the right language for each. Although the applicant is not required to provide it, the credit union will be required to ask applicants for ethnicity, race, and sex, regardless of whether the application is taken in person, by mail, via the internet, or over the phone. These questions can be listed on the loan application form or on a separate form that refers to the application. The credit union also must offer the applicant the option of selecting more than one ethnicity and race and must permit the applicant to self-identify using aggregate categories and disaggregate categories. If the information is not provided, the credit union must note that and then collect the information on the basis of visual observation or surname. The credit union does not need to use the disaggregate categories when identifying the applicant by surname or visually. If the applicant provides the requested information for some, but not all fields, the credit union will have to report the information that was provided by the applicant, whether partial or complete. In order to prepare for this, after January 1st, 2018, credit unions must utilize a revised application or separate form that refers to the application that allows the applicant to self-identify on that disaggregated basis and provides disclosures in compliance with the rules. Credit unions are permitted now to utilize this new application collecting disaggregated data prior to January 1st. However, for applications received prior to January 1st, there is a transition period that allows the credit union to report the applicant's ethnicity, race, and sex required under the previous rules, not when the credit union takes final action on the application. This slide provides an example of what the disaggregated categories look like on the sample data collection form. Credit unions can find this form within Appendix B of the regulation. Credit unions should be making sure they are adding this collection form with their loan application packet. Well, that does it for this brief overview of the HMDA changes credit unions should be preparing for now. We hope this review was helpful, and we thank you again for joining us at the CU Compliance Connection. Remember, you're not alone. Your league or association and CUNA are there to support you with all these regulatory changes. Make sure to take advantage of the compliance tools and resources available to you most of the time at no additional cost. Also, be sure to stay tuned for future broadcasts on issues that affect your credit union. We are here to help you at the CU Compliance Connection by League Info site.